Top 8 of the Utah Regional Championships. I am jumping on the mic just for a little bit with my good friend Len.
Hey guys.
And we've got a really exciting first match to kick it off. I think we're doing all the top 8 and top 4 matches before the finals. So
Yep.
lots of action. There's still going to be 7 games, 7 best of 3s that will be streamed. And we're going to kick it off with Cade Bowles against Eugene Vizel.
Yeah, so this is our 1 seed and our 8 seed. Cade Bowles was our 1 seed. We didn't see him on stream at all today. So I'm really excited to see what brought him to that 7-0 record at the top of the tournament.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's pretty rare to have a tournament where the top seed actually ends up not being streamed. So I think just due to the circumstances, it seemed like, he kind of just quietly slipped his way up there. And like you mentioned, I think it would be really cool to see, because he was the only undefeated player, and so that's going to be a big deal as well, right? Seeing what was able to propel him through all these Swiss matches. But, of course, curse of the first is always something we talk about. Just because you make it into the first seed at any tournament does not mean you're going to be able to, once you make it to top cut, there are no favorites, really. It's anyone's game.
Yeah, Pokemon's a game where seeding very rarely matters.
Right, it pretty much doesn't matter at all, way more. We see lower seeds win all the time. Last weekend in Sao Paulo, actually, Carson Confer and Alberto Lara were two of the X2s, just slipping into it. But at that point, it's a brand new tournament. So Eugene, however, is actually a little bit handicapped for this match.
Yeah, he actually lost a Pokemon, had a Bisharp that had its stats written incorrectly on the sheet, and so it's going to be missing. It could play a really pivotal role. I mean, Bisharp's a Pokemon whose resistances are oftentimes really valuable to a team. That answer to Intimidate can be really valuable to a team.
Absolutely.
Losing all of that can really put a big hole in your team that kind of is hard to solve.
Yeah, so we'll see how Eugene can adapt, but, hilariously enough, he was able to make it through the tournament. I'm not sure if he was one of the players that had lost the Bisharp at the very beginning or whether he just lost it. I'm not sure if you know.
I'm not sure either. I know Gio, who's also in our top cut, lost a Pokemon right at the beginning and managed to go 6-1 anyway and make it on into this top cut.
I was going to say, in competitive play, we actually occasionally do see these team sheet errors that are basically human error, which is very unfortunate, but we see players able to still make it very far. Desu, who was able to get second at the Australian Internationals, was able to pull it off. But here we go. I think we're actually going to get started. So you do see the Pokemon on the screen. We're going to see Eugene obviously missing the Bisharp. So he has Salamence, Azumarill, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Tapu Koko, and the Azumarill. And Cade with the Gengar, Whimsicott, Kommo-o, Terrakion, Tapu Bulu, and his own Incineroar. So, one common Pokemon between the two here, and of course it is that Incineroar.
Yeah, talk about Cade's team first. A lot of different modes there on that team. The Gengar, Whimsicott we've seen a lot of as a pairing, has a lot of offensive pressure. And then, of course, the Gengar with Kommo-o, like you were mentioning earlier. And then there might be one here. Terrakion, not a Pokemon we see all that often anymore, but famously was paired with Whimsicott to beat up, get that justified boost, and start sweeping with all those attack boosts. That might be there. And with Bisharp missing, no rock resist on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Bisharp actually would have played a really pivotal role in this matchup, given the Intimidate from Incineroar, given that it would hit Terrakion, Gengar, Whimsicott, and the Tapu Bulu for super effective. So Eugene's going to have to figure out some other ways to play around that now that he doesn't have it. I think one thing that'll be interesting to see is how big of an impact Azumarill is going to play in this matchup, because Azumarill is one of those Pokemon that can really effectively sweep, but it's got to have to worry about a lot, I think, in this matchup. Gengar outspeeding it with Sludge Bomb, Whimsicott with potential Encores, even just the, really quick beat up and just a Rock Slide if the Terrakion and the Whimsicott combination comes out. So
and Tapu Bulu, too, a Pokemon it may not be able to do much damage to and could
Exactly.
easily KO it, maybe even something like Horn Leech and just heal back anything Azumarill was able to do. So Azumarill can be really valuable, but also could be a liability in certain matchups.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. We are going to get into it. Eugene definitely has a uphill battle, given that he lost his Bisharp, but we'll see how he's able to adapt. And this is going to be really exciting. I really hope to see the Whimsicott Terrakion, I think, come out from Cade's end. Just kind of a throwback to some of the older VGC days. So the leads are going to come out. It's going to be the Tapu Koko and the Amoonguss. Pretty common Pokemon. Nothing too surprising there from Eugene's end, as we're going to see Gengar and Whimsicott come out from Cade's end.
Yeah, so that Whimgar immediately hitting the field. Tapu Koko and Amoonguss, not terrible answers to have out against it. It's nice to have that Rage Powder option. Even Fake Tears plus Sludge Bomb likely won't be able to KO Amoonguss. You have Tapu Koko to vie with Gengar for speed. Gengar can't comfortably expect to go first. Maybe that means Whimsicott feels like it needs a tailwind. So really a couple of good answers to Wimgar here.
Absolutely. You always got to be a little bit worried about the quick Z move into the Gengar, but we are actually going to see the Tapu Koko switch out. Salamence is going to be coming in. Going to activate that Intimidate, but of course doesn't really matter against the Gengar and the Whimsicott. But Salamence, a pretty good Pokemon to have, won't get immediately knocked out by a Sludge Bomb and threatens both of these Pokemon with its flying type attacks. Gengar is going to choose the Mega Evolve, so of course now with the Shadow Tag ability, the Salamence and the Amoonguss will be trapped, but I think if you're Eugene, you at least have some Pokemon that can deal with the trap. Gengar opting for that Protect like most Mega Gengars typically do, just so that you get the Shadow Tag immediately. And like you mentioned, that Tailwind is going to come out. Cade just covering his options, not wanting to lose Gengar immediately to a potential Z move. As we see actually a Sludge Bomb come out from the Amoonguss, that's going to target down Whimsicott. That's going to bring it down to its Focus Sash. So not going for a Spore. Of course, you can't Spore with the Electric Terrain. Sludge Bomb, pretty much the best option there. And it is going to be able to do a lot of damage to that Whimsicott. But Whimsicott, a Pokemon that sometimes might actually like having that 1 HP if it has something like Endeavor.
Yeah, possibly. Whimsicott has got a lot of different options for those move slots. And if you're talking about maybe having Beat Up, it's another move you've got to fit into 4 moves. So Endeavor may be really difficult to have. There's not much else to do with Whimsicott that turn, or rather with the Amoonguss that turn with Electric Terrain preventing Spore, not much reason to Rage Powder. So it makes a lot of sense to just pick up all that damage with Sludge Bomb.
Absolutely.
Tailwind does come up for Gengar and Whimsicott, but probably not going to make much difference immediately here. Gengar would have been outspeeding these anyway. And still, the Rage Powder is a good answer to something like a Fake Tear Sludge Bomb against this Salamence.
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, when Curse Body is active, or not Curse Body, Shadow Tag, you can't switch out. So Salamence and Amoonguss forced to stay in. Amoonguss here going to protect to potentially prevent getting taunted from Whimsicott, a pretty common move on Whimsicott. But we're going to see the Fake Tears come out. It is going to target the Salamence. This probably, I think, is going to be a double up into the Salamence. It's going to be the Icy Wind coming out. Let's see if that's actually enough to knock out with the -2 special defense. Of course, super effective 4 times, and with the Fake Tears, all that added up, and it is going to get the knockout on Salamence.
That's such a good combination of moves there. It can be hard to fit that Icy Wind, probably means it doesn't have Disable, but if you have it there, you either, if it does Rage Powder, you're getting the -2 special defense, and then the Icy Wind's going to be a lot of damage against Amoonguss, then still a lot of damage against Salamence with 4 times super effective. But then because the Rage Powder doesn't come out, you just pick up the Salamence KO for free there. A really great turn for Cade.
Yeah, one of the things that made Eugene's life a little bit more difficult was bringing out the Tapu Koko and blocking his potential to actually Spore his opponent. So this Amoonguss really is not doing very much right now. Azumarill does come in, but it is going to opt to protect. So Amoonguss here maybe trying to pick off the Whimsicott with something like a Sludge Bomb. But the Fake Tears from Whimsicott is going to come out. I think we might just see a double up here into the Amoonguss as well. There is the Sludge Bomb, but it actually is going to target down the Azumarill. So Amoonguss survives. It probably would actually survive a Sludge Bomb from the Gengar anyway. Whimsicott does finally go down, but it's important to note that, of course, Gengar's still in, so you still can't switch out if you're Eugene, and the Amoonguss now is at -2 special defense.
Yeah, it means if you can bring in a different attacker that can really threaten that Amoonguss, maybe something like a Clanger Soul Blaze to a -2 special defense Amoonguss.
Exactly. Now, one of the things that's interesting is that Kommo does come out, but Gengar is still going to be faster than that. So Amoonguss here could potentially just go for a Rage Powder. I'm actually not even sure if a Sludge Bomb would knock out Amoonguss. I would suspect that it doesn't. This does allow Azumarill to potentially go for a Belly Drum, or maybe just a Play Rough to outright knock out the Kommo if it is running Play Rough. The Rage Powder does come out. Here's the Sludge Bomb. Let's see if this is enough to knock out. I'm honestly not sure. Amoonguss is going to fake to a critical hit.
I don't think it would normally be enough.
I don't think so either, yeah. And here is the Z move coming out from the Kommo.
The critical hit coming back to bite Cade.
Yeah.
If that critical hit doesn't happen, you get the Clanger Soul Blaze onto Amoonguss, and now you don't. Doesn't affect the opposing Azumarill. No boost.
That's actually one of the most interesting interactions to see, right? Because with Kommo, like, most of the times you're going to get the boost off, even if there's one fairy in the field. But here we have a really unique interaction where, because there's nothing else, you actually just don't get the boost. You need to at least hit one of 2 Pokemon. So Kommo here now won't be boosted, and the Z move has been committed. So Azumarill also gets that Belly Drum up, allowing it to potentially just one-shot things. And Tapu Koko comes out now. This is actually pretty perfect because you have the ability to just go for Aqua Jet Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, I mean, the Dazzling Gleam going to be outspeeding that Kommo-o because it didn't get those boosts. That critical hit, so terrible for Cade.
Yeah, and was one, normally you think critical hits help, but if that critical hit doesn't happen, Kommo most definitely knocks out the Amoonguss and gets all the boosts that it needs. So those boosts being pretty critical, allowing you to potentially survive a Dazzling Gleam from that Tapu Koko. So now Eugene is actually in a potentially pretty good spot. My question now, of course, is what is Cade's last Pokemon?
Yeah, Cade's going to need a lot out of whatever's in the back to change this field position.
There's just an Aqua Jet coming right out. It is going to target down that Gengar. That most definitely will be a knockout. Tapu Koko has a Dazzling Gleam. It is just going to knock out the kommo-o. It is just going to go for it. That should be a pretty clean knockout there, as we know kommo-o has already used up the Z move and does not have any of the items that can prevent it from getting knocked out. Kommo-o's going to faint, and suddenly this game has turned completely around.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what Pokemon Cade could hope to bring out that can possibly deal with these. I mean, Incineroar is not it. That's just an Aqua Jet target.
I was thinking if he had that Tapu Bulu, that actually could be a decent answer potentially based off its item, but Incineroar definitely not what you want to set in against an Azumarill that's already set up. So I think we're actually going to see Eugene take this game.
Yeah, that critical hit just really turning around the game. If instead that kommo-o had the boost, would have been able to outspeed Tapu Koko, look for damage there. Maybe still not have had enough to KO Tapu Koko, and so it wouldn't have changed too much. But
right.
Still a big missed opportunity.
The critical hit looked unfortunate as the time, like at the moment, but actually reflecting on it, I think Eugene probably could have actually been able to pull out the game even without that critical hit, mainly because even if kommo-o's set up, it doesn't actually have too much to hit the double fairy, you know? You can't use your main means of offense. Typically, kommo-o will run like Flamethrower and a fighting type attack, and neither of those really hit either of these two for too hard either. So we're just going to come out from the Azumarill. It's going to knock out the Incineroar. We're actually going to see Eugene take this first game despite not having all 6 of his Pokemon.
Yeah, missing the Bisharp, and it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, and I thought that was really impressive. I think that was a game that demonstrates the weakness of kommo-o. It really, even if it sets up against fairies, for example, it's still pretty weak. And in this game, it wasn't even able to set up, so it was pretty much just dead weight. So I think if you're Cade, you definitely have to adapt and figure out a better strategy to beat that Azumarill. It looked like the beginning of the game was going really well, you know, getting that quick knockout onto Salamence, but a lot of the play with the Azumarill feels like just pivoting yourself in a position where you finally get that setup. He got that one turn. That's all he needed. So I think Cade needs to be incredibly aware of that. Tapu Bulu may be a solution to bypass the Rage Powder from Amoonguss.
Yeah, I think Tapu Bulu could be super valuable to answer that Azumarill, get past the Rage Powder. I also still think Tracheon could be really valuable, not as an answer to Amoonguss, but as another offensive option instead of kommo-o that maybe is less vulnerable to ending up against fairies and not being able to do much.
Yeah, both players know exactly what they want to do. That was a really quick team preview, pretty much choosing under 5 seconds, and we're going to get into this game too. So let's see whether Cade can run it back or whether Eugene is just going to roll over again with the Azumarill, which I think is a huge win condition. It is going to be Whimsicott Gengar coming out again from Cade, a really safe lead option, and it's going to be Salamence and Amoonguss here coming out from Eugene's end.
Yeah, so what he ended up switching into against Whimsicott and Gengar in Game 1 now is just being led against Whimsicott and Gengar. But now he knows about that Icy Wind, probably wasn't expecting it in Game 1. Still, even knowing about it, may not have a great answer to it. It's just a really solid play against this pair of Pokemon. The thing that Eugene does have working in his favor is that because Tapu Koko hasn't been on the field yet, he does have the option to Spore. So Salamence can just protect itself, and Amoonguss can Spore Gengar. Things start to look a lot better for Eugene.
Yep, but Salamence here is going to swap out. Doesn't want to just feint immediately to that Icy Wind, Fake Tears combination again. It is going to be a Azumarill coming in, so let's see if maybe Cade called this. I'd be really impressed, but he could have potentially gone for like a Fake Tears Sludge Bomb combination instead of going for the Icy Wind. Gengar here is going to Mega Evolve, so of course Amoonguss and the Azumarill are trapped in once again. Here's Fake Tears coming out. Who is it targeting? It is going to go into the Azumarill. Let's see if it's an Icy Wind or a Sludge Bomb coming out. It is just going to be an Icy Wind, so that is a huge, huge opportunity for Eugene. He does get in Azumarill relatively safe, and he's most likely going to Spore the Gengar here.
Yeah, this is looking like it's going to be a really solid turn for Eugene.
Yep. Speed's decreasing, but not really mattering too much. But no, it's actually not a Spore. It's just going to be a Sludge Bomb coming out, targeting down the Whimsicott. So had an opportunity to just shut down Gengar completely. Instead, maybe predicting a Protect on the Gengar, or maybe just wanting to bring Whimsicott down to its stash. But now, of course, Gengar, a potent option to Sludge Bomb. However, Amoonguss does have the Rage Powder to bypass that.
Yeah, and because that Fake Tears was aimed at Azumarill that Amoonguss doesn't already have lowered special defense, it would need to be another Fake Tears plus Sludge Bomb to actually get the KO against Amoonguss. Right. But that would just be giving up a Belly Drum.
Right.
So
there's the Rage Powder. So as you said, I think we'll probably see a double up into the Amoonguss with the Fake Tears and the Sludge Bomb here. Fake Tears is going to come out, so Amoonguss is going to go down, but Azumarill does get what it wants, and that is that setup. So, no, it actually opts to go for an Aqua Jet instead of Belly Drumming. Going to knock out the Whimsicott, but this means that Amoonguss probably should go down to a Sludge Bomb right now from Cade's end. So Sludge Bomb is going to target down the Amoonguss. Does already have some damage on it, and it is going to be able to get that knockout after taking some chip damage. We weren't sure earlier, like we thought it probably wouldn't knock out at full health, but after like 20-30% chip damage, that should definitely be enough.
Yeah, it seems like about 80 is pretty normal for that combination, and so with that extra chip damage from the Icy Wind, able to pick up the KO. That Aqua Jet, even with priority, of course, Whimsicott also has priority from Prankster, and so being the faster Pokemon moves first with that Fake Tears, and so that Aqua Jet really doesn't gain Eugene that much in that turn, and I think so. It ends up being a really good exchange for Cade. Getting Amoonguss off the field is going to be much harder to get that belly drum now, especially if you see Tapu Bulu hitting the field.
Yeah, really interesting. So Tapu Bulu's grassy terrain goes up first, and then Tapu Koko's electric terrain. So it is confirmed that that's Choice Scarf Tapu Bulu. Quite a good Pokemon to have in this position. Other interesting things, so part of the reason why Azumarill may not have belly drum was, of course, of a potential Encore coming out from the Whimsicott had Whimsicott not fainted, because if you don't Aqua Jet, then it'll stay around for another turn, and you know the Amoonguss is going down. So that definitely explains some of what Eugene probably was thinking. We're just going to see a Woodhammer come out immediately. He's going to target down that Azumarill, and that should just get a clean knockout. So quick knockout there. Doesn't need the grassy terrain, super effective hit. Of course, Bulu's going to take some chip damage, a little bit more than chip damage, but Gengar is going to get the Sludge Bomb and is going to outspeed that Tapu Koko, and it looks like we should be going to a Game 3 really quickly.
Yeah, it may have been a speed tie, but anyway, the Sludge Bomb manages to go first, KOs that Tapu Koko, and it's just 2 quick KOs, and there's not much left for Eugene to do here.
Right, you'd imagine that probably was a speed tie, given that most of the times these Pokemon do like to run max speed. That's actually a really big deal. If you win the speed tie, you knock out the Gengar most likely with the Z move or, you know, a boosted Thunderbolt, and then Bulu's locked into Choice Scarf Woodhammer, and then you just bring Salamence in. So I'm really curious as to what Cade's last Pokemon is, because even though this looks like a pretty commanding win, that was a huge, huge speed tie between the Gengar and the Tapu Koko. Salamence is going to come in, but at this point it shouldn't be able to salvage the game with Icy Wind pressure from the Gengar and one Pokemon in the back.
Yeah, those Icy Winds will just come out, start lowering its speed, and picking up even more damage from the Woodhammer. Don't think there's much Salamence can do here.
Very little damage output from the Woodhammer against Salamence, but I think this is actually pretty good information to see how much Icy Wind does without the special defense boosts. Of course, it is single target Icy Wind, and that actually almost one-shots the Gengar, or from the Gengar to the Salamence. But, ooh, Dragon Dance coming out from Salamence. Not sure if that's something he needed to reveal.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's something he needed to reveal either, and because of the Icy Wind speed drop, Tapu Bulu is still going to be moving first, Gengar is still going to be moving first. You just kind of click Woodhammer and Sludge Bomb and move on to Game 3.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty big piece of information actually to give up, because it does confirm you're more physically oriented, but we are going to see a forfeit. So this is going to go to a Game 3, but it's been a very fast-paced set.
Yeah, so quick. I mean, with these Gengar teams, because one player ends up with their Pokemon locked in, and the other player, often with the Gengar, feels like they need to stay in and preserve that pressure. You can see lots of big turns where Pokemon start coming down, and those dominoes, once they fall, kind of have a chain reaction where that hole is blown, and then there's no good switches, no counter-offensive pressure, and so someone just goes down very quickly.
Yeah, and to me, like, part of the difficulty in that last game was that Eugene wasn't able to get Azumarill set up. I think he was just really worried about Whimsicott's moveset. That's something that it's really difficult to play against, right? Whimsicott's one of those Pokemon where it literally could have like 8 to 10 viable moves. You never know which one is carrying. Does it have Taunt? Does it have Encore? Does it have Endeavor? Does it have Fake Tears? Does it have, you know, the common moves like Tailwind? And of course beat up like with the Serakion as well. That's something you got to think about. So yeah, I think, but if you're a Cade, you can't feel too comfortable about that last win too, given that there was the potential speed tie between the Gengar and the Koko. That could have changed things completely.
Yeah, speed tie and that kind of very mind-gaming turn where you ended up picking up the KO onto Azumarill, or rather the KO onto the Amoonguss without having the Azumarill set up. You can't necessarily count on that going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to go to a Game 3. I feel like, yeah, both of these games going by really, really quickly. Eugene seems to have stuck with the same 4 Pokemon, and those do seem to be his best options. I'm curious as to whether or not Cade really switches anything up, and whether he, you know, brings the Kommo even. But it's going to be Gengar Whimsicott as a lead again.
Yeah, and we didn't actually see his 4th Pokemon last game, so we don't even know if he did switch something up going into Game 2.
But it's the Incineroar coming out this time. I actually really like that adjustment here, because while the Intimidate doesn't matter, Incineroar actually has the potential to one-shot either of these 2 Pokemon. You have Fake Out Pressure as well targeting Whimsicott, and Incineroar is a pretty bulky Pokemon.
And you don't have to worry about Encore coming out. Of course, the Dark typing on Incineroar making it immune to Prankster, so a really valuable Pokemon to have against this pairing. And, you know, I think a Pokemon that, when it was introduced, was responsible for a lot of the decline in these immediately, because it is so difficult for both Gengar and Whimsicott to play against. Amoonguss still on the field. We've seen it multiple times here where Gengar and Whimsicott alone, without any prior chip damage onto Amoonguss, can't deal with it. And again, because Tapu Koko hasn't been on the field, that Spore is a threat. We've seen Eugene up to this point just opt for Sludge Bomb, trying to get Whimsicott off the field as fast as possible. Maybe that's less important when you have Incineroar.
Right, well, Whimsicott's actually going to swap out. We are going to see the Terrakion come out, so a familiar face from the older days of VGC. I know I'm really excited just to see that, and that's a great Pokemon to bring out against an Incineroar. Gengar is going to choose the Mega Evolve. The main question now is it just going to protect? You'd imagine so. and we'll see what Incineroar and Amoonguss attempt to do. So the Protect will come out from Gengar, preventing it from getting knocked out and keeping the trap up. Incineroar is going to go for the Fake Out, is going to target down the Terrakion slot, and Amoonguss is going to go for the Spore into the Gengar. The Terrakion switch there is a really smart one, I think, and it's relatively safe because I think it's highly unlikely the Terrakion gets hit by something like a Spore or a Low Kick because the Whimsicott was in that slot prior.
Right, the most likely things to come if it was going to be damaged would be like Sludge Bomb or Flare Blitz.
Exactly.
Terrakion is happy to switch into. Amoonguss is still in a pretty good spot here, though. Gengar and Terrakion, even combined together, probably don't have the offense to get Amoonguss off the field, which means a Spore is incoming because Cade doesn't have a Tapu that he can switch in himself to prevent that Spore.
Instead of actually revealing Protect, so it's not the Assault Vest variant that we often see. Gengar is just going to go for a Sludge Bomb, is going to target down the Amoonguss, so get some good chip damage off against it. And we're going to see a Z move come out from the Terrakion. It looks like it's going to be the Rocky MZ. This is going to be really big. If it targets on the Amoonguss, that probably is going to be a knockout, but if it goes into the Incineroar, not only will it not do nearly as much damage, the Amoonguss will also get the potential to get a free Spore off. So here's the Continental Crush. Let's see who it targets. This is going to be really, really big. And it is going to target down the Amoonguss. A really good call there. Should be able to knock it out, and now, of course, we know that the Incineroar is still trapped in, as, of course, the Z-move does knock out the Amoonguss, and the Incineroar protected last turn, so now you could potentially double up onto the Incineroar this upcoming turn with like something like a Sludge Bomb and a Rock Slide. I think that probably knocks it out even, given that it is not Assault Vested.
Yeah, and close combat might even be enough. This Terrakion's not intimidated. It switched in after Incineroar hit the field, so it's just close combat on its own. Ain't a Sludge Bomb against Tapu Koko and try your luck at the speed tie again. We could see a really quick repeat of how Game 2 went down, where just 2 quick KOs came out once Tapu Koko hit the field. That's such a massive KO to be able to combine together, use that Z move, get Amoonguss off the field, and really open up all of your offense because you're now not worrying about Rage Powder, you're not worrying about Spore.
Right.
You're just putting out all the damage you need.
Not wanting to risk the speed tie there, Gengar is just going to opt for Protect immediately. Here is the Z move coming out from the other end. It is going to be that Electrium Z. Once again, target selection really important here. You'd imagine it probably goes into the Gengar. If it goes into Terrakion, though, that will be an impressive call. That might actually turn the tides completely back into Eugene's favor. So we'll see where Gigavolt Havoc goes into this time around. It is going to target down the Gengar. So, yeah, I think Eugene there was probably thinking, I'm just going to risk the speed tie and try to get it because I can actually pull back a lot of momentum if I do win it. Here's close combat coming out from Terrakion. Is it enough to knock out the Incineroar? It does get the knockout cleanly, and it's not every day you see Incineroar fall to just one attack like that.
Yeah, Terrakion, a Pokemon we've seen years past, has so much offense with that giant base power, close combat from its big attack stat, and then the speed, not necessarily needing against Incineroar, but against a lot of mid-range speed Pokemon, able to outspeed them and land that massive close combat. Here has the damage, unintimidated to KO Incineroar, and Incineroar forced to stay on the field because of that Shadow Tag. That's what really allowed that KO.
Yep, so Salamence is going to come back in. I think it's actually, despite Cade being up 4-2, it's still not necessarily over, but if Gengar wins the speed tie, then I think it's more or less over. But with Salamence having the ability to Dragon Dance, that's always something you have to consider as well. Terrakion is weakened now, doesn't have its Z move, also is at -1 defense and attack from that Intimidate. So Gengar, once again, not wanting to risk those speed ties, is going to swap out. It is going to go into that Tapu Bulu, of course. We know it's Choice Scarf. That also is going to take the electric terrain away, meaning that Thunderbolts or any electric type attacks will be doing substantially less damage. Terrakion's actually going to pull the switch as well, so an opportunity for Cade to kind of repivot himself a little bit, as both of these new Pokemon coming in are very, very healthy. Salamence is going to Mega Evolve, so, I think the switch in on Whimsicott now covers the potential of Salamence Dragon Dance if the Whimsicott does have something like an Encore. So we'll see whether Salamence opted to Dragon Dance or not. Koko here is just going to launch a Thunderbolt here into the Tapu Bulu, trying to knock out that Gengar, but not going to be able to do so. And Salamence does go for the play of Return and is going to target down the Whimsicott, so it will bring it down to its Focus Sash. So good turn of offense there, I think, if you're Eugene, but now Whimsicott could potentially just set up a Tailwind, and I think that probably is going to be enough to end this game.
Yeah, like you said, that I really like that double switch, because if that Dragon Dance had come out, the game would have been basically over. You just aim the Wood Hammer at Tapu Koko and Encore, and there's nothing Eugene can ever do. Instead, Eugene does make the play to get out the return, does a lot of damage to this Whimsicott, but still getting off the Tailwind combined with the threat of the Wood Hammer versus Tapu Koko, forcing the return into the Tapu Bulu. Massive.
So Tapu Koko opts to Protect, but Whimsicott is going to set up Tailwind. Pretty much no reason not to at this point in the game. Woodhammer is going to go into Tapu Koko's Protect, and Salamence is actually going to reveal the Earthquake, so the Dragon Dance variant with Earthquake as well. With Grassy Terrain, obviously not going to do very much damage, but should be enough to pick off the knockout on Whimsicott. Trying to get some chip damage on Tapu Bulu, although that actually doesn't end up mattering, as it will just heal back from the Grassy Terrain. But the most important thing is that Tailwind went up and that Tapu Koko protected, so now all you have to do is just, launch Woodhammer again into the Tapu Koko slot. You've still got Gengar with the Icy Wind and the Terrakion with Rock Slide. So I feel like Cade more or less has this game won unless he misses a lot of attacks, but you can also choose to play it a little bit safer and go for something more accurate, like a Sludge Bomb.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no reason not just KO Tapu Koko with the Woodhammer. Try to go for the 2-hit KO on Salamence with Sludge Bomb. You have all the speed you could ever need. Icy Wind's not going to end up mattering here, I don't think.
I think Eugene's got to go for the double protect. He does try to attempt it, but does not get it, and that more or less will seal up the game. I think even if he got that, he still would have been fighting a really uphill battle, but that's the only play he really can make in that position because Bulu is 100% of the time going to launch that into the Tapu Koko slot. Icy Wind isn't going to miss for Salamence, so that more or less should seal up the deal. It's not going to knock out Salamence. Yeah, once again, coming just short, but that's going to be enough for any of the Pokemon really to finish it off. Return is going to come out. It is going to knock out that Tapu Bulu, but obviously Gengar or Terrakion can now just clearly knock out Salamence.
Yeah, so much offense came out so fast for Cade there. Once you got the Tapu Bulu on the field threatening that Woodhammer, it was kind of over. The Terrakion had that big close combat to get the Incineroar. It's a really interesting combination because, like I was saying, Incineroar can be so much of a problem for Gengar and Whimsicott. So when you have something that you can bring in is fast to make sure you can get that close combat off, threaten the 1-hit KO against Incineroar, and then has that extra layer of synergy if that beat up Justified is there. It kind of gives you another mode combined with having that answer to Incineroar.
Yeah, I can't stress how important enough that Cade made the correct double target on Amoonguss in the very beginning of the game. I think one Spore completely turns the tide of this game, and so I was a little bit surprised to see Eugene not have Spored in the second game just to shut down Gengar, but I guess he was just really afraid of Whimsicott. And I think, Cade not having brought Terrakion out earlier was able to kind of catch Eugene off guard, and he brought Terrakion out in like a really, really good position. And yeah, the turn where the double up went into Amoonguss, you'd imagine, if Amoonguss protects her, Incineroar can potentially knock out the Gengar with something like a knockoff. But I think that turn really, really decided the game. And then, of course, afterwards, when the Koko launched the Gigavolt Havoc into Gengar, into the Protect, I think those were the two main pivotal points of that last game.
Yeah, because if that Gigavolt Havoc had gone into Terrakion, safely outspeeding, it probably would have been the KO. And then you don't have the close combat land onto Incineroar. It becomes a much bigger problem because you have Tapu Bulu, Gengar, and Whimsicott as your offense to take down Incineroar. That's really difficult.
It's actually near impossible if you think about it. Incineroar actually probably wins that in that position because you can't even fake Tears the Incineroar given that it's Dark type. So yeah, Tapu Bulu is really not going to do much to Incineroar. It does have a potential superpower if it has, but there's Salamence support in the back end. I don't think Tapu Bulu should be doing too much to Incineroars with it. And Gengar and Whimsicott really aren't going to do anything. So that was also a really, really big turn. I think kind of just gambling, trying to win the speed tie, but maybe not realizing, hey, if I knock out Terrakion, then Incineroar is just actually going to win me the game. Or maybe just worried that Terrakion does go for a Protect there.
Yeah, I think that's the other element of it, because even if you're gambling on the speed tie, you maybe want to gamble to win the speed tie and KO Terrakion, not gamble to win the speed tie and KO Gengar.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was a really exciting but fast best of 3.
Very quick. Those offensive Gengar teams, they don't slow down.
I'm really happy, though, because I thought Whimsicott was one Pokemon that I just was surprised people weren't using more, and I think it fits so well with the Gengar and the Kommo archetype. So pretty cool to see that actually put in a lot of work. I mean, the Tailwind speed control was really important, but also the fake Tears. Like, it's not every day you see an Icy Wind be able to pick up a one-hit knockout. It's exactly what we saw in that first game. Another interesting adjustment was that there was no Azumarill in that final game, and I think that was definitely something that I can respect that adjustment, right? Because the Incineroar is so important. I think Incineroar was really the key Pokemon to protect in that last game, and really just came down to whether or not he was able to protect, what was protecting between Gengar and Terrakion there.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to take like a very momentary break and be back with James Eakes versus Matthew Greaves.